Hi everyone, welcome to Write by Mia. I'm Mia and this is the first episode of The Writer's Life, where I'll be sharing my process as a writer from thinking of a story to writing and revising it to eventually submitting it. And for this first episode, I really want to focus on my journey to becoming a writer and growing comfortable with calling myself a writer and all that entails. For starters, for those who don't know me, I've always been a lover of reading and writing. I was a huge book nerd as a kid. Each Christmas and birthday, I would ask for a Barnes & Noble gift card and go with my parents or grandparents there and try to find the biggest book I could and read it. And I wrote a little bit too when I was younger, elementary, middle, and high school. You know, a little few stories here and there, just to kind of dip my toe into it a little bit, but it always was sort of a side hobby and took second place to my academics, especially in high school, where I was super focused on getting to Stanford and really being successful there. And I think this is sort of a journey that all writers have to go through, is transitioning from writing becoming or being rather just something you kind of do on the side to really becoming something that you take on as an identity and you really work at and hone, in your daily life. And even though I'm younger, I definitely think I've gone through that process, and it really started when I got to college. And so I'd love to just spend a few moments talking to you all about that process and what it looked like for me. So as I said, though, when I was younger, reading and writing were a huge part of my life. I never really considered myself a writer until I got to Stanford. And I think the biggest reason that is because Stanford, as an English major, really allowed me to dive deep and head first into the craft of writing in a way that I really wasn't used to. I mean, of course, in high school you do English and you have your assigned reading and all of that, but the English major at Stanford was all encompassing, from learning how to write fiction and poetry to even, studying medieval literature and poetry. And from there, just being in those classes and seeing how much I loved just the work and the writing and the literature and all that I was learning, I started to seriously consider writing as more than a hobby, but something that I could work at for the future and maybe make into a career of some sort. So I guess more to the mechanics of it and what that even looked like, becoming a writer, because what does that even mean? So I think it first starts with intention. You have to not only begin to have confidence in yourself as a writer, but also have the discipline to know that this is something you work at every single day and it's not something you can just pick up whenever. So for me, that was just a major mind shift, kind of for the first time in my life, is I was like, yeah, becoming a writer, it's like a full-time job. You really have to work at it. And for me, I think that started with, beyond reading all the fiction I loved, it also meant reading books about writing, which I hadn't really done before. Because, as so many people have told me, great writers are great readers. So I read not only great authors at Stanford by taking just a variety of classes and really analyzing and thinking about how they wrote and why their words made such an emotional impact, and just looking at the structure and the mechanics of the writing and all the different ways that writers bring life to the page and how they do it. But also thinking of sort of the behind the scenes element of writing. So, books about writing itself and how do you structure a story? What are the differences between writing a short story versus a novel? How many words should you be writing a day? What are the different exercises to help you, create different settings or get to know your characters better or work on dialogue? Just all of those things that I had sort of intuitively known about, but had never really set my mind to studying and working on for myself. And so the turning point for me was Stanford, especially kind of in my latter 2 years, where I just was like, I had to make the decision for myself that this was something I wanted to work on. This was something I wanted to hone, because this was my love and this was what brought me joy. So first, yeah, the reading. I've read a whole bunch, from fiction to nonfiction, poetry, all of that, just to get a grounding in just the writing itself and how you bring it to life. And then, of course, you gotta write. And so for me, I do well with kind of checklists and to-dos and having goals for myself. So I basically said to myself, I said, okay, you're writing for class and everything, which is great. But in order to, really get a handle on this, you need to start writing a certain amount of words each day. And so I eventually ended on like 500 to 1,000, depending on how I was feeling that day. And it definitely necessitated a lot of discipline. I think for me, that was probably one of the hardest parts, in that, I'm going to school and studying and all of that, but I still had to make time for my writing, because it's so important that you get into the habit and the pattern of writing a lot and reading a lot, so that you're always in cadence. Because sometimes you feel like your writing is crap and you have nothing new to say and it's all nonsense and you have no idea why you decided to write in the first place. Definitely had a lot of those moments, but it really was a learning experience to learn how to push through that and put 500 words on the page each day and be disciplined in doing that. And I think from there, it just grew easier to sort of see myself honing my craft more and actually becoming what one might consider a writer. And I think this really came to a head when I started my novel, my kind of junior and senior year, where that discipline was really necessary. And I really sort of took on that task of writing a novel and what does that look like. And I will, of course, delve deeper into that in future videos, but just so you guys get a little taste. And I just grew incredibly, disciplined and was incredibly thankful to all the people who pushed me, from my mentor, Sarah Frisch, to Professor Elam, to those in the Honors in the Arts program at Stanford. I think they really showed me and helped me become a writer in my own right. And it was something that I took with me after graduation. And something that I just always look back on now is sort of the start of what I hope will be an incredibly fruitful writer's life and writer's journey. So for any of those who are, looking to become a writer or are not sure whether they can even give themselves that title, I know sometimes I definitely don't feel like a writer and don't know if I can put that as my official title. I just encourage you to, remain disciplined and know that honing your craft and loving it is probably the best thing you can do for yourself. And writing has just given me so much joy and peace, and just a foundation from which I do so much else in my life. And I encourage you to just keep going, because it really is the most rewarding thing. So that's just a little snippet of sort of my journey in growing comfortable with the title of being a writer and how that process was. It's something I still, struggle with here and there from time to time, but I'm incredibly grateful for where I am now, and I'm excited to continue talking to you all about my process from, now becoming a writer to the actual writing itself. So stay tuned for future videos on that, and please let me know in the comments or through an email to me what other content you'd like to see. I'd love to hear from you. So thanks so much, guys. I'll talk to you soon.